Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas.
Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell, and today we're talking
Hi,
about.
welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell.
Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name's Douglas
Welcome
Campbell,
to Film
and today
Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell. Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell, and today. All right, I get it. I'll switch locations. Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell. Man, I haven't been on this couch set since the Godzilla review earlier this year. Today on Film Stash, we're going to be talking about the new Robert Zemeckis film Here, starring Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Honestly, there's not even a deep plot synopsis I need to give for this one. So this movie covers multiple families and couples as they live in this one location over the course of a century. At least that's what the plot synopsis says. It is way more than a century. This movie is based on the graphic novel, also called Here, by Richard Maguire. And this film follows the same format as the comic to a degree. You get a single image of this one location, and little white frames pop up here and there that show what also happened in this location over the course of time. I was really curious, like, if there was even a story with this, or characters. Like, it was a really ambitious story. And so knowing what the comic was like, I was just curious, how are you going to adapt this into a movie? Coming into the positives here, I do think that director Robert Zemeckis, he did find a way to streamline this story and try to make it as somewhat cohesive as possible. Because, let's face it, like, if you adapted it verbatim as it is in the comic, it would have been either boring or it would have been just way too scattershot. And don't get me wrong, those problems definitely do occur in some places in this movie, but Robert Zemeckis, he did find a pretty decent way of making this justified as a film. The main selling point of this movie, it was Tom Hanks and Robin Wright being reunited again on the big screen since Forrest Gump. And if there's one thing I could say about their performances, I do think for the most part they do an excellent job in conveying the different ages throughout this movie. Because you do get to see their characters' lives from late teenagers all the way into being elderly people. I'm not gonna lie, seeing those two together on the big screen again, it kept bringing me traumatic flashbacks to seeing them together as Forrest Gump and Jenny.
Time sure does fly, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Move this man! The performances, whenever you did get to see their snapshots, it pulled me into what their personal dramas were. And it helped me buy into the film's gimmick whenever the special effects, they might have faltered here and there. I hope you're enjoying this video so far, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Any help that you do with this video would be greatly appreciated. And now, back to the stash. Now going into the mixed, the special effects themselves were an incredibly mixed bag. So essentially, for the aging and de-aging effects, they actually were assisted by a startup AI company called Metaphysic. And they basically did not have to put dots on their face, and they just performed scenes like normal. And the thing about it is that I'm putting this here in mixed because some of the shots with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, they looked great. Like, it looked like it could have been outtakes from when they filmed Forrest Gump like years ago. Other times, it doesn't. And they get this kind of weird, half-assed Snapchat filter effect that just doesn't look as convincing. What's weird is lately, we've been getting a lot of films that have been pushing this type of technology. And every time a new one of these films come out, it just seems like they brag about as if they're the first ones who've done it, when in reality, it's been a common practice for a while. Even the ones that I love, like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, they do look spotty in places. And the only films that really seem to successfully capture this aging and de-aging process, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Ironically, I was talking about the MCU, but the film, like whenever it is these other time periods where the house isn't built yet, they use a lot of CGI and it doesn't look good. Like, not at all. It's detailed enough to where you could tell a lot of effort was put in, but not enough time was given to the animators to where it just doesn't look very polished. Ultimately, whenever it does come back to Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, despite the effect being slightly off in some places, I do think that their performance, it ultimately saves it from being a complete distraction. And so, going into the negatives here, after reading the graphic novel and loving the graphic novel, I'm not fully sure if this concept being brought to the big screen completely succeeded in its execution. The story would not have worked if it were told in a linear fashion, but with how the film turned out in its final form, I also don't think it needed to be an hour 40 something. And some of the vignettes, it was fun to see, oh hey, what was in this location at this point in time? Oh, are there any parallels to what's going on? It was definitely fun to see, but I kept finding a couple that would pop up that just did not serve as much of a thematic purpose. A few moments of some of these vignettes, they just did not justify being included with the other main stories or the vignettes. An example is there was this one vignette that popped up that was just this tiny little thing with Benjamin Franklin, and the only reason it was there was because during a Halloween party vignette with Tom Hanks, he was dressed up as Ben Franklin. That's the only reason why. And it's so goofy, because like, I get why you put it there, you're being cute, but for a movie that's already a bit scattershot, just you don't really need it. This film, because it is told through different screenshots throughout time, you don't get to dive too much within any of the characters within the main stories. They're pretty surface level for the most part, the struggles that you do see with these characters. So you can't really dive deeper into those surface level things, and you do get a decent story just by the framework of everything, but you kind of wish that they dropped some of the lesser vignettes and focused on a couple of extra little things here and there. Despite the really strong performances all around, most of these stories, they just feel incredibly half-baked. So overall, I definitely liked it more than I disliked it. A lot of the performances were very charming, and some of the scenes I did actually start choking up a little bit and contemplating where I am at my own point in life. But it was a very mixed experience overall, though. It did make for an interesting watch, and it was a neat little experiment to see play out on the big screen. I think I would give it a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. Probably closer to a 6.5 than anything. For this week's recommendation, it's kind of hard to pinpoint a recommendation that completely follows the framework of this film. I think I'm going to recommend to you a film this week that takes place in one room. And I would recommend the court drama 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men is a classic movie. It's after a murder trial, and they have to determine whether this boy is guilty of murder. It's 11 versus 1, and it's really, really gripping. Because of the one location, you do get very intense camera close-ups. You do feel the overall stuffiness of the room and the direness of the situation. And it's just a great movie overall. I would highly recommend 12 Angry Men. Well, that's all the time we have for today here at Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell, and if you excuse me, I gotta add to the stash.